Hello, Victoria. Welcome to Kura, Conversations with Tom. I'm so glad to have you on the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thank you for inviting me. It's really pleasant to be heard.
Well, I first want to, out of respect for you, names are important to me, but I also, unfortunately, I only speak one language, and I don't even speak that one well. So I got Victoria. Could you pronounce your last name for me?
My last name is Tarasevich.
Tarasevich. And that sounds to me, is that a Russian name?
It's a Belarusian last name. Both of my parents are from West Belarus, and
West.
it used to be a part of Poland, but
My understanding of history is that that part of Eastern Europe has gone back and forth between a couple of hands. I mean, I think my understanding is if we went back, say, 500 years, it would probably even be part of the Lithuanian-Ukrainian Federation.
yeah.
And you said it was part of Poland at one point. And now Belarus, and let me ask you, I've heard Belarus and I've heard Belarusia and I've heard White Russia. What's the difference between those terms?
So I think in Russia they say Belarusia, and in Belarus we say Belarus.
Now, would I be crazy to guess that Bela means, or Belo means white? Is that where we get?
Yeah, it is.
Ah, okay. So unfortunately, for all of the wrong reasons, Belarus is in the news this week. I'm actually getting a little emotional. The strength of the Belarusian people, like for what they've been doing this week. So you said that Belarusian, were you born here in the United States? Were you born in Belarus?
Yeah, so I was born in Belarus and I was there for 20 years. I'm 22 now. So I'm really new in America. And
well, I have to say your English is better than my Belarusian, so you're already winning.
Thank you. Well, my parents wanted to move because of the political and economical reasons. And I don't know, I lived there my whole life, and then my parents made a decision to move, and probably a lot of Belarusians really wanted to leave as well.
I'm asking this question because I do have a good friend who's Russian, and I know that there were restrictions on her leaving for a very long time because of her education. She was a nurse in Russia, and the Russian government wouldn't let her leave. I guess my question is, are there similar restrictions in Belarus, and how were your parents able to leave?
My family won a green card in the lottery.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
So just luck, really.
Yeah, just a lottery, but still we had to go through different background checks and like health check, everything. And it took us a year to just have all these documents ready and be approved to move to America.
I happen to know that Alexander Lukashenko has been in power for 26 years. That means, watch my math skills because I'm a history teacher. That means that he has been the dictator of Belarus for your entire life.
Yeah.
You don't remember anything else.
Yeah.
That's insane.
And Belarus as a separate country doesn't know another president as well. He was the only one.
Which is equally shameful that he has held on to this power this long. I think that, as an aside, I think that's one of the things that makes George Washington such a great historical figure, is his ability to be the leader of a new country and then step away. And that's clearly even more shame for Lukashenko to hold on to power at the expense of Belarus and Belarusians' desire for political reform and democracy. Victoria, this is a little slideshow I put together just this week, and I was wondering if I could share this with you and go through it slide by slide, and maybe I'll share a couple of thoughts, but I'd really like to hear your reaction to these slides. So again, the president of Belarus, the only president of Belarus, his name is Alexander Lukashenko. There was an article written a few years ago calling him Europe's last dictator. On the other hand, Russia's part of Europe as well, and from my perspective, I would consider Vladimir Putin a dictator as well. In fact, Putin and Alexander Lukashenko seem like they're brothers or cousins in the way that they've held on to power and and not allowed for political opposition. Would that be fair to you? Like, would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree because even today they had like a call or something to discuss how could Putin help in the process.
And when you say help, I'm unfortunately, I don't think you mean help him leave power. I feel like you probably mean helping him to stay in power.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate because I think neighbors and political and military allies can have more influence than the rest of the world on any political leader, but in particular dictators like Alexander Lukashenko. He became president in July 20th, 1994. That would mean I would have been a junior in college. I was a junior in college living in Philadelphia. Since then, I have gotten a master's degree, gotten married, had 2 kids, got my career going, got divorced, got remarried, got my doctorate, and become a college professor. In all of that time, Alexander Lukashenko has been the president of Belarus. It's insane. He allegedly 6 terms as president, meaning when I say allegedly he's won these elections. I could be convinced he won his first election. He did kind of run as the reform candidate against the established Soviet allies in Belarus. At one point before Vladimir Putin became Vladimir Putin, he actually flirted with the idea. They used to have this thing called the CIS, the Commonwealth of Independent States. It was like the democratic name of the ex-Soviet Union states. And he actually talked about reuniting with Russia, I have no doubt, in order to become the dictator of Belarus and Russia.
Yeah, I believe they are together. And I do know that Belarus and his politics are always integrating with Russia. And like Belarus, with the rule of Alexander, would be the least likely to join European Union.
Yeah, because of his lack of interest in democracy and political reform, I would imagine. One more question about similar names and similar language, or is there a difference between the 2 languages as well?
So we have our own language, but we also have Russian language as our national language too. So we have 2 national languages. The most popular is Russian, but recently people started to force Belarusian culture more and speak the language again.
I would imagine that's actually also a rebuke of the president, because he is so tied to Russia that I can imagine that a resurgence of Belarusian language and culture is not just pride in Belarus, but also a rejection of his autocratic behavior and his relationships with Russia. Probably. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So for anybody who doesn't know, Belarus is in Eastern Europe. It's landlocked. It's surrounded by Russia, Ukraine, Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia. And Viktoryia, you said that where you were born, where you're from, used to be part of Poland. So I'm guessing in the far west?
Yeah, my parents are from there, but I was born in Minsk.
Ah, the capital, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't even know what to say about this. This is obscene, absurd. As somebody who teaches history and politics, when I look at something like this, and I look at a presidential candidate winning 80% of the vote, 77, 84, 80, 84, 80, I have a hard time believing that that's legitimate. But then when you look at the leading opposition poll results, 14%, 16%, 2% twice, 4%, there is no way. I mean, there's a theory in philosophy called Occam's razor, that the simplest solution is the most likely solution. It is illogical for me to believe that in 2006 that only 2.6 of Belarusian people voted for the opposition candidate. 2.45 in 2010 voted for the opposition candidate. That's not possible. I suppose maybe it could happen once if the person running against Alexander Lukashenko was Lucifer, the devil, but this is hard to imagine. What do you have to say as a former Belarusian, as a Belarusian American, when you look at these numbers, what do you think?
I just think it's funny and sad at the same time. I don't know if he really expects people to believe those numbers, or is he just mocking people?
You know, in
It's just
politics,
ridiculous.
yeah, it is. In politics, there's another factor that we look for. We look for voter participation. So,
Yeah.
from a certain perspective, I could almost believe these numbers if the voter participation was like 10, 15%. Like if people were so uninterested in government that nobody went to vote and only 10, 15% of Belarusians voted, then you could have some kind of a distortion like this, that maybe only people with money voted or only people who really did like him voted. But in terms of 2020, my understanding is the voter participation in Belarus just this weekend was over 85%. And so if over 85% of the people are voting, first of all, that's amazing. The United States doesn't come close to that. But secondly, when you see a high voter participation, also usually means they're upset. People who are upset are not going to vote for the incumbent. It's like you said, it's both frustrating and laughable at the same time. Before we move on, could you tell me anything about the flag of Belarus?
I believe that green means like the ground and red means the sky.
And is the topography, my understanding of most of that area is it's relatively flat. Is Belarus mostly plains, or is it mountainous as well?
No, it's just plains and I mean like swamps, and it's really under the level of the sea.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't know that. You learned something new. What I do know is that the country is relatively poor. If you look at the 44 countries that are in Europe, Belarus is considered to be the 8th poorest country out of 44 in Europe. The other 7 poorer countries also tend to be in the eastern part of Europe: Moldova, Romania.
So I know that average monthly salary is just $400, but this number is also not true. It's way lower than that, in fact.
Yeah, because he being Lukashenko, he owns 7 television stations. I couldn't even find any independent television stations in Belarus. I saw that some Polish and Russian broadcasts are available in some sections of Belarus, presumably near the borders. I don't know, but 7 state-controlled TV channels, is that real?
Yeah, I think so, but we also didn't really watch the TV because it's just useless.
Yeah.
Even now, when all this is happening, they still don't really show. They show like happy people and all this
Yeah, I
stuff.
think when I'm thinking about the developments in Belarus this week, I really kept coming back to North Korea. I can't think of another, even Russia has an independent radio TV station and some newspapers. So before we talk about what did happen this past week, just want to point out that this picture was taken on May 9th in Belarus while the army was getting ready for the May Day parade. Some Belarusians, and I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say some very brave Belarusians, carried a coffin alongside the parade route for the May Day celebrations in protest for what's going on in Belarus with COVID. And so, Viktoryia, I don't know if you're aware, I don't know if you are in contact with your family still, your extended family in Belarus, but I would imagine that the frustration with COVID probably exasperated people's frustrations with Lukashenko, which then led to the protests that we're seeing this week. Is that fair? Do you think that's true, or do you think that COVID is completely separate? And then also, how is your extended family in Belarus, if I may ask?
Yeah, so it is true, and I have still a lot of relatives there and friends, and we all in contact.
Are they safe?
Yes, they are. They are fine, but I think that the COVID, it was like the last drop into like opposition to raise and speak up.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I'm sure you're right. And so I know there was an opposition candidate. Again, I'm not very good with Eastern European names, so I'd like you to pronounce her last name for me. Her first name is Svetlana,
Tikhanovskaya.
and my understanding is she is an English teacher, actually. So she's very educated and it speaks both English and Belarusian and presumably Russian as well. Could you tell me anything else about her? She looks relatively young.
Yeah, so she is not, her intention wasn't to become president because there were opposition candidates that got in prison. And then her husband got involved because he's a blogger and he wanted political prisoners to go out and make another fair elections.
So you're telling me she
So
wasn't even running for president. Other people were
no,
running for president. They were arrested. Her
yes,
husband then wrote about the other candidates having been arrested, and that's what got her involved and that's what made her declare her candidacy.
yeah, she became a candidate because after that her husband got arrested as well.
Her husband's arrested as well
Yeah,
for writing about the fact that the other opposition candidates had been arrested.
yes.
This is what we call a police state. That not only are the elections a joke, but the opposition candidates are arrested. And and again, my understanding, and I know, Victoria, we're going to talk about this. My understanding is she went missing herself right after the election, and you were able to tell me that she is safe right now, but she was missing for
Mhm.
several days, wasn't she?
Yes, and also I think that they let her participate just because they had her husband so they can manipulate if something happens and she wins. So
And
that's exactly what happened.
and you told me, Victoria, she's actually in Lithuania at this point.
Yeah.
And I know that the United States has criticized the elections and the response to the protesters. I know Germany has, I know the UK has, and many other European countries. But again, it's neighbors and military and political allies who have the most influence on countries. So Belarus has neighbors, Ukraine. Ukraine currently has a pro-Western leader. Belarus is surrounded by Lithuania, and she's in Lithuania. So I'm going to guess that Lithuania, actually, I know that Lithuania has criticized the results of the election as well. Latvia, I haven't heard much about. I have heard that Poland has been critical of the election. So to my knowledge, Latvia and Russia are the only ones I haven't heard much about. But Victoria, you said that Russia's leader, Vladimir Putin, was just on the phone with Alexander Lukashenko talking about how he can help him to stay in power. And or could you tell me a little bit more about Lukashenko's relationship with Vladimir Putin?
So I don't really know about Latvia, but I know that a couple of countries congratulated him with his winning on election, including Vladimir Putin.
So what happened? Walk me through. The election was it Saturday in Belarus, or was it Friday and it was Saturday here in the United States? What day did the people of Belarus actually go and vote?
It was August 9th.
August
I
9th,
don't
the people of
remember.
Belarus go to vote,
Yeah.
and almost immediately they start hearing election returns, and it's another Lukashenko victory, right?
Yeah.
So why this time? Why not any of the other 5 times? You already mentioned that COVID had something to do with it. I don't know. The floor is yours, Victoria. Tell me what's going on. What happened?
So I think really COVID was like the last drop, and all the people, they realized that the president doesn't even care about their health, and everything just was like pressuring this opposition to raise. And actually I asked a couple of my friends why this year, because there were a lot of protesting like last years and it wasn't that powerful. And the reason why, they told me that actually candidates were just worthy, and this first candidate who was arrested first, he actually looks like and sounds like a really good president for Belarus.
Ah, so they know what they lost in many ways. What's the police like? I can't I can't I can't look at these pictures. Police officers attacking their own people. You know, in the United States, we have this expression that police are to protect and serve. They are not protecting and they are not serving. What's the deal with the police force?
So I think um, Alexander Lukashenko gave them an order to just do whatever to suppress the opposition and do everything to just stop it. So that's why they didn't even know any limits. They were beating up people, and there are some deaths.
I also heard that some people were detained and then released, and when they were released, they've said that they were being tortured while they were being held and detained by the police.
Yeah, so for now, I believe they arrested about 6,200 people.
62, but mostly in Minsk or around the country.
I think it's around the country. But for now, they released about 2,000 people, but still the majority is still there and they're still being tortured.
Okay, Victoria, these are some pictures that you just shared with me, and I'm pulling them up on the computer now. Um, Walk me through these pictures. I shared with our viewers, our listeners, a couple of pictures already of riot police or police in riot gear with batons striking the people. Do you know where this picture is? Is this in Minsk? And walk me through your slides.
Yeah, so I put most of the pictures I put there from Minsk, and um, they're just so there's just so many information. I don't even know where to start because the police was allowed to use any way to stop people, and they were using grenades. They were shooting people. There are like
With
a lot of
live
videos.
bullets, real bullets, not rubber bullets like we've seen on the streets
Um,
of the United States? Or
yeah, rubber bullets.
do you think that the protests in the United States regarding the death of George Floyd, do you think that emboldened Alexander Lukashenko, that he could kind of say, well, the United States is doing the same thing, or is this totally different?
I think it's totally different, and I also think that he was already prepared for this because so first 3 days starting from the day of election there was no internet, and
Uh,
so people actually looked up how much does it cost to block the internet all over the country, and it's kind of more than $52 million.
so a guy who's been in power for 26 years, who has 7 TV stations that he controls, no opposition TV stations, no independent news, then shuts down the internet in his own
Mm.
country just before the election. And I did read recently too that he fired the prime minister and appointed a new prime minister. And the analysis by Western experts was that that was also an indication that he knew something was brewing, that he knew he was in trouble, and he was trying to shake up his cabinet to make it look like he cared and was being responsive to the people. So he fires his prime minister, he shuts down the internet, people go to the polls anyway, and nobody believes the results of the election. And here we have now riot police, and you said that there were 2 or 3 days of very bad protests. Is that correct?
I think 3 days of really bad protest, and all the people got arrested or really beaten up, and they're in the hospitals now.
In this picture, you can see smoke in the background. I would imagine that would be from those flashbangs or grenades that you're talking about. What is that flag that they're flying? That's not the Belarusian flag.
So before Belarus became an independent country, it was a flag of Belarus as of like when it was a part of USSR.
Ah,
And when Belarus became independent and they had a new flag, this flag became a like an opposition flag.
Because that flag, the current Belarusian flag, is really the flag of Lukashenko if he's the only president they've ever had.
Yeah.
Right? You know, here in this picture that you shared with me, it's men, looks like ages, I would say about 18 to 30 to 40, it looks like. I see almost all men in this picture. They're wearing masks because, again, of COVID, and their arms are locked together in solidarity. Do you want to say anything else about this picture?
After all the violence stopped, there were women coming out the streets and creating the same chains.
Yeah, the women in white.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot. Is there a particular reason that they're known as the women in white? Are the women intentionally wearing white out of solidarity? Does it mean something? I see that this older Belarusian flag that you're talking about, it has a white background with it looks like a singular red stripe down the middle. Is that why they're wearing white? Is it a coincidence? Or what do you know about the women in white?
So this candidate, the opposition candidate Svetlana, so because they knew that election could be falsified, they came out with a thing that people who are gonna vote for her, they should wear white.
She was wearing a white pantsuit in her when she was photographed voting presumably for herself, right? So that's probably kind of the color of opposition in around this candidate, or is it all candidates, or is it really just this 2020 election?
Just this 2020 election.
And she's wearing her white pantsuit. You have a video that you shared with me. I'm unable to play it right now, but tell me what happens in this video.
There are just videos of the violence and how the police beats people up and how they shoot everywhere and grenades are exploding.
Yeah, I can see in the thumbnail of the video a lot of smoke from, again, grenades or flashbangs. Now, what's the role between the military of Belarus and the police? Because in the United States, it is very unusual for the military to come out onto the streets of America. The National Guards, which are loosely related to the federal military, they can be deployed on the streets of the United States, but the federal military has only been deployed to the streets of the United States. I believe there was recently this year in Washington, D.C. I know September 11th, 2001, but it's really rare in the United States. What is the role of the military in Belarus, and are they on the streets with the police as well?
Yeah, it's very uncommon too, but I guess because Alexander didn't have any more support, he got involved the army too, and the police and the SWAT.
Yeah, you just said SWAT. You shared with me a picture here. It looks like snipers on the roofs of buildings in their own city. What's going on in this picture?
So after those violent protests first days, people understood that they just can't go on an open area, so they were all hiding in the neighborhoods like this one. They were definitely like watching what people do, and
well, they're holding guns in an engaged position. Those are not observers. Those are people who are prepared to shoot. Like you said, we don't know whether they shot or not, but those guns are in an engaged position, not in an observing position. This picture's difficult to look at. Fortunately, what we can say, the person's in a hospital and hopefully getting the treatment that they need. It looks like on the back left hip, significant bruising, if not burn marks. Anything you'd like to share about this picture or the level of violence that?
There is a girl, and I read her story. She said that she still can't hear on one ear, and she was wearing like lenses, and that's why she didn't got blind when she got this grenade thrown in her.
So she's deaf in her right ear, and she has a black eye on her. Looks like maybe two black eyes, but definitely the right eye is even more dark and bruised. Her right arm and bicep are wrapped up in ace bandages, and it looks like the lower part of her left arm is wrapped up as well. How
Mm.
old would you guess that she is, Viktoryia?
Oh, I don't know, maybe like 17. She's very young.
17-year-old girl, beaten by her own police, 2 black eyes, deaf in her right ear, and arms bandaged, because she's standing up for her rights in her country.
Yeah, there are just so many people who didn't even participate in the protest. They were just like walking their dog or just walking by, and they got arrested.
I advanced the slide because I could tell that you were getting upset. Understandably, I'm getting upset. I know this is really hard for you, but I'm also so amazed by how brave you are to reach out to people that you don't know. We've only met in passing before. The fact that you trust me and that you let me interview with you so we can get the story out of what's going on in Belarus. Viktoryia, you're a really brave person.
Thank you.
And tell me if you'd like. I know we talked about the opposition candidates and the rigged election, but you shared here a slide that's in Cyrillic. I assume it's the names of the candidates for president and their outcomes.
Yeah, so there were 2 ways of the opposition to count real votes.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them was to wear all white, and they asked to record this on cameras that would be in a building or anything like that, to record how many people in white would actually come.
That's brilliant.
And
So what you're saying is the people who are voting for the opposition candidates, that's Lana, they wore white going to the voting stations so that people on the outside using video cameras can record how many people are going in wearing white. So then when you have the rigged election results coming out and they say that in polling station A, Dictator Lukashenko gets 80% of the vote, there's video evidence that 80% of the people did vote the same way, but they didn't vote for him. They voted for the opposition.
yeah, that was the one way. And of course, they can't really count all the people. It was just to see the majority of people, if they would come wearing white.
Yeah. And they
And
were?
the other, yeah, a lot.
I have to
And
tell you, though, I know enough about dictators, Viktoryia. I guarantee you that these words have come out of Alexander Lukashenko's voice or his puppet regime's voices. Well, lots of people were white, and they didn't know that that was the color of the opposition candidate. They were just wearing white because they happened to be wearing white that day. That's what dictators do when they're confronted with facts.
yeah.
You said there was another way that they counted?
Yeah, that's on the slide. It is another way. So they create like a bot in Telegram Messenger. Do you know that one?
I don't. So it's an app for a smartphone?
Yeah, it's just an app to communicate, just a messenger.
Gotcha.
And they created a bot. So you text to this bot and he asks you a question, who are you gonna vote for, and all this information to confirm who are you gonna vote for. And then when you actually vote, you should take a picture of your, how's it called, bulletin?
Your ballot.
Your ballot, and next to your passport. And then you send the picture to this bot, and
Wow.
just recently they counted all the votes.
Well,
And
because that's a way to also, you're preventing Lukashenko and his allies from saying, well, people are just responding to the bot over and over again. It's 5 people sitting in a room together that sent in 1,065,510 votes. And they've already come up with a way that they're protecting themselves from that accusation and putting out passports, which again, the bravery of the Belarusian people, because if their passports are opened, that also means that the dictator's regime knows who these people are, hence these mass arrests as well. But this is brilliant organization by the opposition.
Yeah, I think that it was actually really smart to do this. And they now have all the evidence that he didn't win the election.
So we already mentioned the women in white. They've become the faces of these protests throughout Belarus. Thousands were, thousands are being arrested. You said that about 2,000 have been released. But I can't help but remember that it was women who took down the dictator genocidarian in Sudan just within the last couple of years, Omar al-Bashir. This is amazing that not just the bravery and the power of the people of Belarus, but the power of women, the power of the women of Sudan, the power of the women of Belarus, as young as that 17-year-old girl that we saw brutally attacked by her own police officers. What do you think is going to happen, Viktoryia?
I don't really know now, but I really hope that they wouldn't commit any more like crimes against peacefully protesting people.
And more, this is crimes against humanity. It's not just crimes against people. This is an international crime now. Attacking innocent people, attacking your own people under international law. Now, he can be charged by the ICC, the International Criminal Court. He can be charged by any special court that the United Nations Security Council would like to establish. Unfortunately, Russia can veto it in the Security Council, but Russia cannot veto it in the ICC. This man needs to be brought to justice. He needs to be removed. Belarus, White Russia, has about 6 neighbors: Russia, Ukraine, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia. All of the neighbors are standing with the people of Belarus. The European governments in the West, the United States, most of the world community is standing with the people of Belarus. The only person standing behind Alexander Lukashenko is Vladimir Putin. And Vladimir Putin needs to understand that if he continues to stand behind this dictator, then he's next. This is the time. The walls are closing in on Alexander Lukashenko. 26 years has been at least 25 years too much. Viktoryia, you said you're 22 years old. He's been the leader of this country your entire life.
Yeah.
You want him removed, but you're afraid for your people?
Yeah. I even remember myself in like 8th grade and understanding that it's all just really weird that he is a president for so long.
8th grade.
School.
Okay. That's young, which
Yeah.
means, again, it's a tribute to you and your intelligence, but it also just shows how obvious it must be to everyone in Belarus that this man is not the legitimate leader of the people of Belarus.
Yeah, and at this age, I remember that I had a friend whose brother was a political prisoner for protesting on some of the elections. So, and he got in prison for 8 years. And he got out really earlier before he...
Doing something that in the United States we take for granted. He was put in jail for 8 years for doing something that Americans do without even thinking.
Yeah. And that's why people were really afraid to express their position in politics.
Viktoryia, I said before, I'm going to say it again. You were brave. The people of Belarus are brave. This man, Alexander Lukashenko, is a coward. He hides behind police officers who he gives orders to attack his own people. That's not what police officers do. And I am so grateful that you reached out to me. I'm grateful that you joined me today. And together with the Belarusian people, with your voice, sharing these pictures, sharing what's going on in Belarus, we'll keep the pressure up, and hopefully this man will realize it's time for him to retire to a mansion in Russia and get the heck out of Belarus, because he's not welcome there anymore.
That's true.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.